So for session two, I'd like to welcome Michael to start the session on fellowship lessons learned and applied.
Well, thank you for all the reflections. That was emotional and uplifting at the same time, and just brought me back many years. So thank you. I think from all of us, it was a really great summary. Now we head into what can we do about this in the future, and I think we've all been talking about that. The work's not finished. The work is only beginning, and we can build upon what we've learned from this program. We've just come through a pandemic. We don't know if it's over yet, but that forced countries to become pretty insular. Along with political trends these days, countries have kind of gone back into their shell in some ways, and that creates a really complicated situation to try to do international and global development where it's needed most. We probably have more people in poverty now than we did before the pandemic. That's a problem. We regressed from the Sustainable Development Goals of the UN. Just as we were making progress in 2018, 2019, we now backslid. So coupled with that, we have a lot of other issues. We have the climate change issue. We have some big issues, some big problems that we need to face. And did you want to pause? Okay. And so we have these reversing trends on the Sustainable Development Goals. And we have this, what that leads to is a possible greater chance that more people will be left behind. And the problem with that is we've got to accelerate, or inequities will continue in the world more than ever. And the haves and have-nots will create a huger, wider gap in the world. So we have our work cut out for us. Meanwhile, during the pandemic, the technology didn't stop. I came from Microsoft not that long ago, and the whole holy grail at Microsoft was to put the operating system in this thing called the cloud. And as soon as the cloud came, computing power would expand exponentially. And you've seen that with AI, and ChatGPT is just one little example. But if you think about all the technology that continued during the pandemic, you have, biological technologies, you have Internet of Things, the sensors on everything that are coming. You have 3D printing, which will have a huge impact on the world, and something looming just around the corner that will change computing and our power going forward is quantum computing, which we can't even fully envision yet, but it will exponentially create more power. What that does is it creates more inequity in the world. And so you have people who have this technology and people who don't. You have people backsliding into poverty and falling back on the SDG goals. And we've got to fix this gap. So we have problems across all the Sustainable Development Goals with justice and healthcare and clean water, jobs, climate change, just to name a few. And yet we know now, based on what we've been talking about this morning, we have some ingredients in a recipe that can create success. And so we hold the magic in our hands, and we know that we can use this magic for good. And so how do we do that? How do we use this magic for good? And part of it is growing leaders who can take on these problems, because we have the ingredients. It'll take a lot of effort, again, like we've seen with this program, but it's really learning that takes on a challenge. It's practical, it's reality-based, it's accomplishment driven, as was mentioned by a number of people in the room. It'll take partnerships, but we know how teamwork works, and international support was mentioned, this family atmosphere and involved alumni, just to name a few ingredients that we know. And so our work and success must translate to pressing issues of today, and the challenges has gone up. Certainly we still have challenges in Afghanistan that need to be addressed, but globally we have even more pressing issues today and into the future. So we have bigger problems ahead to solve, and yet we're the few that might have the magic that can help make it happen. So no pressure. But three examples just I want to mention, because I serve as chairman of the advisory board for UNITAR in the Division of Prosperity. One of the things we're looking at is Afghanistan, and some of you may know this. We're creating a forum that we want to hold in Seattle and bring the diaspora, all the alumni from this program who live in the US and Canada, to Seattle if we can, and focus on what we can do for women and girls in Afghanistan. We know that the Taliban will allow them to go into healthcare, so they can become midwives, nurses, doctors. We know they can own their own businesses, women can. And so how do we help them grow in entrepreneurism and in these fields? So that's one small step forward. How do we make that happen? And we have some new partners. Sahar is a nonprofit that's started by a board and some Afghans in Seattle to help women and girls education in Afghanistan. By chance, they're in Seattle. PATH is a nonprofit that does a lot of healthcare professional development, massive nonprofit in Seattle that you don't hear about because of the Cates Foundation so much. The PATH, I was wondering how to connect with them, and I found out the CEO of PATH is on the board of trustees for UNITAR. I was like, whoa, look at that. And so he and I connected, and now they're supporting in partnership this forum on Afghan women. So those kinds of things just happen, and we can find these connections, and it's just amazing when it works out. A second effort, so that's one effort, just a small one, but we hope it'll grow. And UNITAR could support an initiative that will get brainstormed out of that forum in Seattle. The second one in Africa, we've been working a lot in UNITAR on rural development in Africa, people who have aptitude, who could get digital literacy skills and take jobs in corporations that are moving into Africa. And so how do we get that digital literacy training? They have mobile devices, so they can take some online learning. It's not enough. Now we can have them come back into the fold and actually go into the learning centers. And that'll take a lot of partnership. But so the third piece, so that's number two. Number three is we have this opportunity, though, to combine these ingredients in unique ways with unique partnerships that really pull together the right people and play forward our lessons from the Afghan Fellowship Program to solve these bigger issues around the Sustainable Development Goals. And we kind of owe it. You know, we've talked about knowing that they're social entrepreneurs. We know that we have a leadership system within the UNITAR portfolio. We know we can pull together partners, like I was mentioning, to make these things happen. So, you know, overall, we can better train and support leaders to scale organizations that meet these challenges. We know how to do that. And so just a couple more points, and I'll stop here. Ambassador Kamal was one of my mentors and favorite people, and some of us knew him well. He passed away recently, and his quote to me was always, "It's not a lack of resources, it's a lack of leadership and vision and the will to get things done." So we've got to be able to make that happen. I was approached and interviewed recently by this EU-funded project called Spanning Boundaries. And they were talking about how people look across universities and corporations and governments and multinationals, and how do you do that to solve problems? And so, you know, I gave my answers, but it's to me, it's like connecting dots. It's like making sure the right players are involved, and being able to create true innovation, which is really about pulling pieces of things that have worked in different sectors and pulling them forward into a solution. And I think that's what we all can be, is people who span boundaries and connect dots. And so finally, I just challenge all of us to leave our own legacy. We talked about legacy for the fellows, but it's our own legacy about spanning and creating a new generation of leaders who can cut across these boundaries and connect dots and solve the greatest problems. And we can do that through really leaving a generation of people moving forward who can do this. I like to think of it as a coalition of the willing. We've talked about that in the past, and really apply these Afghan Fellowship Program best practices where the sky's the limit in solving these larger global issues that we have. And along the way, we can keep in mind the heart, the mind, the soul, you know, being caring, humble servants, and increase our intellect in the mind and deepen our connection with the soul. And so I'll just end with a poem that's anonymous that I always closed every Afghan program. And it's for us now with our legacy, because now you've heard all this and we can't help but think about what we're going to do for the future out of this Afghan program. And so I'll read it. It was actually in the notes of Robert Kennedy's diaries. He had found it. I think it's an ancient poem, like really old. But it says, "You have lived a beautiful life and left a beautiful field. You have sacrificed the hour. You have given service for all time. You have entered the company of the great, and with them, you'll be remembered forever." So that's what I can wish for you and your legacy.
Thank you, Michael. So now, without much further ado, I pass the mic to David.
Okay, so this session is supposed to address fellowship lessons learned and applied. And I thought about each of the sessions that I'd participated in. And I asked myself, what were the parts that everybody hated? What were the parts that they were miserable about? And it occurred to me that there were three parts that everybody hated. They hated the problem definition because it was hopeless. Okay, people couldn't agree and they couldn't define, and it was just such a big deal. And even more, they hated having to develop the operational plans to address those problems. In other words, the money, the people, the tasks. They just didn't want to get to that level. And then, of course, when they went back, actually trying to do it, that was not particularly pleasant. And I think that it's possible that those are elements that are the essence of the fellowship, that they come out of it. And when we hear about people who've started their own businesses, who've taken leadership positions in their own governments, you know, those are elements of the fellowship that are very special to focus on those details, which people carry with them. And I will add a fourth element that was also not easy, particularly for Afghans, was the real recognition of lifting up others aggressively as a responsibility, of where, you know, people joined for their own self-improvement, but they left with a mission to enable others. And those are four elements that, you know, that may represent to me the essence of the fellowship. And so I'll stop there.
So that is our introduction to this session. I would like to now ask Sharapiya, our my partner in crime, another one of Nasreen's slaves, to come on. Sharapiya.
It is so great to be here. First of all, I don't want to cry. I will try not to do so, but really, thank you very much, Humaira, Nasreen, for making this possible, for publishing the book. I wanted to start with that because I also got it. It's appeared in Amazon. I got it. I finished it. So you can imagine I was crying many days alone. But now talking about lessons learned from the fellowship, I think from very start, one of the great lessons that makes any program successful probably is a human or people who are involved in it. I think this is a very key element of the fellowship, because from the start, when I was not involved, Nasreen was involved, Ambassador Moore was involved, Humaira was involved. From very start, if you look to the history of how it was started, there are people who were passionate about doing something different. This going and talking to people back in 2002, talking about how we can do, what we can. They could have been developed a 2 months program or 2 weeks program, but no, that wasn't a name, because there was people that understood that it wasn't the case, that it will not work, and they wanted to make it different. So that's the first. And then on the way, maybe because the start was this very passionate with people who are very devoted. I think the people who came along also got injected or got kind of this passion, and this energy was kind of trespassing from people to people, from fellows to coaches to mentors to passion. So this is, I think, one of the great lessons learned, that if you really would like to have a program successful, you have to be engaged in it full-heartedly. You cannot have a 50% devotion. You have to have 150. So that's the first lesson. If that was not the case, I'm not sure what would the result will be, and whether the program would reach what it did today. Another and I think this leads me to another point about sponsor of the fellowship, Hiroshima Prefecture. I get they also got flew of the passion on the fellowship, on the program, because they could adjust. They continued financing this program. They adjusted to any changes of the program did, because the program wasn't static, as many told. It was always moving. It always changed. We got the first bunch of fellows. They didn't speak English. So, okay, here are your English classes, your computer classes. Okay, now we have more people who are more kind of leadership positions. Okay, more classes of leadership, gender. So we have more women. Okay, there is an issue of gender. So this is a beauty of the fellowship. It was never static, not each, as David mentioned, each speaker brought their own perspective and their own vision, and they make the program very multifaceted, very rich in the content, and very engaging. And I love that, Michael, your sessions on team building. That's I think everyone will remember it for a long time. I don't have much time, but I also would like to say also that fellowship, what it also did is that it built the confidence, social capital. I remember Maryam was talking in her chapter that she now, even when she needed to do something, she could go to alumni of fellowship and make it done faster. And that's thanks to Sakut, I think. It's also one of the key elements that we had a person on site who was 100% devoted, who was passionate about the program, and he wanted to make a change for his country. So this is also very important. I have several points more, but due to time constraint, I think I don't want to talk more. I hope I would have been there, but I will finish with one phrase that I love. That's Nazrin's phrase. May the pull of the future be greater than push of the past. So I really hope that we can do something like, Michael, your suggestion about having forum in Seattle is great. Seattle is closer to me than Hiroshima, so maybe I can join you there. But so great to be here, and I think there are many lessons learned, but I think it's we can actually adopt many elements of the fellowship, and they've already adopted within the concept of fellowship with other programs. But thank you all, and see you still here. Bye.
Thank you, Sharapiya. I must actually just add quickly, that was Sharapiya who used to cut off speakers when we did workshops. So I feel as if it's a little bit of a, yes. So I would like to now invite Maryam Ghaznavi to join us.
Hello, everyone. It's so nice to meet you all, apart from formalities and a speech and everything. I just want to thank each and every one of you, because each and every one of you have had a very good impact in my life. And one of my mentors always used to say that you are what your surrounding is, and I am what every one of you were, and what you give part of you to me. So thank you so much for everything, from, the memories that I have, the learning that I have from every one of you. That is something that I can never replace, or that has become a mindset now. It's not just a skill, it's not just a knowledge, it's a mindset that I live with every day. So the funny memories from Suku, the warm welcome from Nigel, and everyone else contribution during the program, that's something that I will always cherish and forever be grateful to. Again, Eid Mubarak, and nice to meet every one of you. Most of you know me by now, and just again that it's been over now 7 years that I have affiliations with the UNITAR, and I was part of the UNITAR fellowship for Afghanistan, but also I was working with women leadership and women entrepreneurship programs with UNITAR in Iraq, Afghanistan, and South Sudan. Sometimes we get so lost in our own problems that we forget that the rest of the world has also their own issues, and then the world is connected. So if we address one issue at a time, that lesson learned will help us a lot in different areas and the rest of the world too. And especially when I was working with South Sudan, I was looking the way they were dealing with the problems. I was like, wow, that is another Afghanistan and another part of the world. But then thanks to UNITAR for connecting all of us and for the years of contribution that it has made in different countries, and obviously for everyone in this room that have volunteered. I think when I was listening to Michael, I was like, well, everything that I had in mind about what should be next for us as a global community, that might come so low because the world is moving very fast, and what we think about Afghanistan, it's so behind, and those problems and these solutions, I mean, how are we gonna work together? But thanks to him for bringing it together about how we can integrate it, and we're not forgetting Afghanistan, we're not forgetting the people of Afghanistan. We're bringing all those lessons learned, all those human capital that we invested together, maybe not in a way that we had it previously, but in a very different way. So when I was listening to everyone, it just reminded me of a piece that I wrote when I was in Afghanistan, in this as part of my write-up for this book. And then the very last paragraph says that as much as I'm happy to see how we all always find meaning in our ways of living, it also scares me when I think of internalization of unjust norms that may become a new normal for the might through the reinforcement of conservative image of women socially, when no one will dare to raise their voice. I hope as the new peace deal is in progress, the marginalized and vulnerable groups should not be seen merely as a number, but living individuals with fundamental rights. I hope not only we should not go backward when it comes to humans and specifically women's rights, but we should also be wary of not allowing the internalization of sexism socially, which is silent but more powerful. It's not only about women having jobs, but actual presence, both intellectually and practically. A real empowerment, not symbolic representation. And everything that I was scared at that time and I wrote, that's now a reality of Afghan women. And I call it impulse reality because that was not us. We worked hard, we were resilient, we wanted to improve, we wanted to make our country out of nothing. But then that's our impulse reality today. And I think it's not fair to just leave things behind. In the realm of education and training, I think UNITAR has offered a lot, and there were numerous capacity building programs and workshops specifically designed to enhance women's skill and knowledge in various fields. These initiatives aim to bridge those gender gap by providing women the opportunity to be part of the fellowships and all these programs. And also the UNITAR program was that platform where women could come together and build that community where we it wasn't just about women, but everyone who was passionate about supporting women, and also because women is not just about women anymore, it's about human right, and whoever is passionate about it was part of it, and we created that support system, that community. And then I am one example of that thing. Jennifer was my mentor, and she supported me throughout this period. Every time I needed her, I just had to leave a message and an email, and she was, wherever she was in the world, she would help me. Rama was always there. I remember when in the fall of Afghanistan, I forgot myself. I was looking for my family, everyone over there, and she called me day, night, throughout this period. She checked on me, and like she was just there. And if they weren't there, I think like I would not have been able to handle that situation. And when situation like that comes, everyone in your country is in chaos and a problem. And it's just that your international friends that come together and give you that support system. And honestly, I wasn't even remembering that I should ask help for anyone, but it was, even then our families were in problem. We were checking on each other. I was calling Sukut was calling Azmat. We were calling, like everyone was together even there. And I think that tells about how much important the UNITAR community was. I mean, that's when everyone is connected beyond that classroom, that we come together and work on technical stuff. So I would say that the program was not limited to classrooms, but also it was a great connection of support system. And I mean, it's a mindset that we have developed over time, and it helps us even now, not just then. I will say that we were the real face of Afghanistan, not the politicized one that the media portrays now. We came together, we accepted each other's differences, we were struggling, we were working, and that's what the ordinary Afghans aspire to be, what we want to be. And every time when we speak about Afghan women today, when they deal with all the challenges, with all the problems, since the fall of the previous government, there's no education, there's no job for them. They have been completely removed from all aspects of their social life. When we talk about all of them, we can't forget about the importance of development projects. And with Humaira Jana, we spoke about this several times, that, I mean, humanitarian assistance might be good at this point, but then we shouldn't forget that these development projects are something that we can work on the long term. And for that, I think like, please, please, please do not forget Afghan women. Your voices are way stronger than the victims who cry every day. No one is advocating for Afghan women education anymore. The world has completely forgotten about it. Please, please, as much as you can, advocate for them. And there are corporations, there are companies, there are associations that bring these organizations together to provide remote jobs for women in Afghanistan in return for minimal salaries. They can work online and run their families in Afghanistan, because if they don't have job in Afghanistan, there are a lot of programs socially out there. And each and every one of you are very prominent people in different organizations. I'm sure if we all come together, something might work out. And they need mentorship programs, because at some point, even when they are disconnected with the world, they don't earn enough. It could be a light for them to live and to have a hope that things can get better in their life. So there will be mentorship and professional development programs. As Sukut said, I think we always needed these development projects, but now we need it more. So I think we need to emphasize more on how we can reform these programs for everyone in Afghanistan. So maybe different in form, but classically in the same direction. I hope that those of us who are still interested, we come up with something and we continue the legacy of UNITAR leadership. Again, thank you so much, everyone. And I cannot thank you enough for everything you have done for us. And you're an important part of our life. I think we will still continue to be working together, maybe in different platforms. So that's it. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Maryam. I would like to ask Nigel Yeah, no, I'm looking at the wrong session. Yes, Nigel, please.
Thank you. I mean, wow, this is, yeah, this is moving for me. This program has really been a catalyst for myself, but for so many of my friends. Seeing you again is really fantastic. Hello. As we've been talking about the program, and as I was thinking about this, one thing that came to mind was something you may recall from the program, that when you come to Hiroshima, we talk about nemawashi. And when you're, this is the concept of when you're moving a tree, you just don't put a shovel underneath it and then sort of move it. You actually have to sort of carefully go down through the root system to prepare it for the move. And I think when we're looking at the lessons learned from the fellowship and sort of how it's been applied elsewhere, I think that's exactly it. The program has exceptional instructional design, the reinforced learning support, the coaching, the mentoring, the ARPs, the international mentors, the Afghan mentors, the work with the University of Texas through David, sort of providing that support, the fantastic resource people who provide this. I mean, that's best in class for learning. And I think that's really when we're looking at where we went with this, where UNITAR took this. I think that's exactly because we could take this model because it was so effective. And so it's already been highlighted. Maryam mentioned, that we developed from 2018 the Afghanistan Women's Leadership Program because we wanted to support women specifically through a program, and we designed this to meet the needs of Afghan women. And it took exactly the same. We brought in, coaches from the Afghanistan Fellowship Program to help support the women. We had the scaffolded learning approach, which is again over a several-month period over the workshops. You just don't teach them something and then go, okay, good luck. Sort of you try it. They've got support. They can evolve it and iterate it through support with us. And I think that really was a big element there. I mean, another big perhaps lesson learned from the AFP was that we actually moved more to a multi-sectoral approach. So as the program went into the Afghanistan women's leadership, into Iraq, into South Sudan, it focused specifically on not just government officials, but then bringing in NGOs, civil society, media, academics from universities so that they can come together and have this discussion on topics. I remember in the Afghan Women's Leadership Program, there was, we had a presentation from the Ministry of Women, Women Affairs, and and NGOs and the people from the First Lady's office, and the government has a particular approach, but then women NGOs had no idea. This is a government. The government is doing this, and this is a women's NGO that actually has no idea that the government's doing this. So that having that discourse together, bringing them all together, I think was a very, very powerful element. And then, as Maryam also highlighted, the South-South cooperation, as we brought the Afghan coaches and mentors into support South Sudan, into our programs in Iraq. That each country is facing different challenges and there are different stages of development, but there's so much to learn from each other. And I think that was a really, really powerful part of the program. I think one other thing that sort of as a lesson learned that comes out for me is the trust. We worked with the Ministry of Finance for many years, with the National Procurement Authority, and you could see the difference because they've worked with us, that the people like Kakar, who've sort of moved up Azmat through becoming more and more senior, you see that there's trust in the process, that there's more buy-in, and that the programs and projects that are developed go further. So I think that's something that's really important, that you can't just do one-off initiatives. It's raining quite hard outside. You can't do one-off initiatives, and the outside is crying for us as we look to see where we can move forward in the future. So thank you. I'll pause there.
Sorry, I wanted to ask Jenny Luan to join, because Jenny worked with us on the book, and she was one of the, and Green Legacy, and she was one of the new tier team who started working on our programs with us. And we feel that they had a front seat view to things we thought we already knew very well and were doing, but maybe we were not, or whatever. But we want them to tell us what they saw or what stood out to them. So maybe we'll close with Jenny on this one.
Hello, everyone. This is Jenny. Thank you very much, Humera, for the introduction. So I joined UNITAR I was at UNITAR as a staff member from 2018 to 2020. And I was also helping with the Green Legacy Hiroshima, and also later on working on the AFLP book. So for me, very interesting as an editorial assistant, I'm very proud to say I've read the book 2, 3, 4, 5 times. So very nice that I get to know and be part of the community through your words down to your voices, your words down to every comma. I really want to say that I really read the sweetness of reunions, the bitterness of setbacks and challenges, and also, as a lot of people mentioned already, the despairs and hopes. And it's also very interesting that this experience working with the AFLP book, and earlier on, I was also supporting the Women's Leadership Program for Afghanistan, that it was the very beginning of my own professional journey. And it's very inspiring for me to start my professional career here, to learn from so many amazing people. And now I'm a graduate school student studying public policy, and I bring what I learned here every day with myself in my classrooms, sharing with my classmates and current colleagues. I've learned it is about the drive to take initiatives, and it's also about the motivation to give and to create. So I also want to mention that the AFLP book will be an inspiration for the next generation like myself, who's starting their career, who will also carry on the motivation and drive that I mentioned for their future careers, and to bring that over to more communities in this world, to more different fields, even though I kind of don't really see myself in the international development field, but I believe that all of these information and skills will be valuable on how to bring people together, get together, build a community for shared purposes and dreams. And it is a process, it is work, and it's also a community. So thank you very much for this opportunity to bring me on board and to witness the very prosperity of this community and the future, and for a better future of all the countries, for Afghanistan, for all the people there. Thank you.
Thank you, Jenny. Thank you.